All right. So you guys see me up here a lot today. So I'm going to be presenting on prescribed fire councils. My name's Chase McLean. I work for the Nature Conservancy's Maryland, DC chapter. I'm a land manager and I manage our nature preserves here on the eastern shore of Maryland. So one of the really important management tools we use on a lot of our properties here is prescribed fire. So it's really important to the restoration and management work that we're doing here in this area. So we've heard a little bit about this in the past few presentations, and just seeing all you hear today is evident of this. There's a huge national demand nationally for an increase in prescribed fire use, both on public lands and private lands. So that whether that's for ecological benefits, wildfire hazard mitigation, other objectives, there's a large demand out there. And prescribed fire councils are one way that we can help address this increased demand. All right, so we'll start out with what is a prescribed fire council? So in the simplest terms, it's a group of folks, not unlike the people in this room, that have a passion for prescribed fire. They want to promote its safe and responsible use as a land management tool and care about educating others about the benefits of prescribed fire use. So prescribed fire councils, they're generally formed at the state level. In some states, they might have regionally based councils. For instance, Florida has several spread across the state. But generally, it's a state-by-state council. A few unique situations with prescribed fire councils are what's known as a prescribed burn association. So very similar to a prescribed fire council. In many cases, they're actually situated within a state's prescribed fire council. But the real big takeaway between those two and the differences is a prescribed burn association is run by and led by private landowners who want to come together to do more burning cooperatively on their land for the benefit of private landowners. So a prescribed fire council has a little bit broader of a focus, and that's going, both private lands and publicly owned and managed lands. So as far as structure, how they're built, a lot of councils commonly are built on a committee format, which is basically a group of people as a steering committee, a few officers, and then members all steer the council and their activities. Others choose to form as a 501c3 nonprofit. There's a lot of benefits and a lot of reasons why a council might do that. But these two structures are generally the most common you see across the country. All right. So we're looking at a map produced in 2020. So it's a little dated at this point. But what we're looking at here are the states across the country that have established prescribed fire councils. And I think there may be one on here that shows it as a developing prescribed fire council. So the big takeaway here is there's a lot more states with a prescribed fire council than those without. When you look at this map, you can imagine some of the challenges that were discussed in Chris's presentation, in Sam's presentation to implementing prescribed fire on the landscape. Those challenges are going to be a lot different between, let's say, the Northwest in Washington and Oregon versus down in Texas or here in Maryland. All the challenges we face there have some similarities, but a lot of them are pretty unique to the local landscape. And it's important for councils to be formed at that state level to address those challenges within their home turf. So important things that, change across the country that councils are involved with are, things like public perception of burning. That's going to change a lot between where you are in the country. For instance, in the Southeast, it's very common for folks to be driving down the highway and see some prescribed fire happening. Out in the West, the type of fire they see there is a lot different than the fire we have here, and it's shaped their perception of fire on the landscape. So that stuff's changing place to place. And equally as important, policy. A few folks have touched on this already, but policy is a lot different between Maryland and Delaware, not to mention between Maryland and Maine or Maryland and Oregon. So, councils formed locally within their state are better suited to address those challenges that they face. So before I move on, some of you might have noted this already, but I'm going to draw attention to this blank spot on the map, and I'll come back to it a little bit later. So if you don't mind, I'll come back to questions here then, and I'll start with you if you don't mind. All right, thank you. So although each state might have its own council with its own unique challenges and objectives, like I've already mentioned, most prescribed fire councils share a similar mission. So they're really after the same thing, and what that is advocating for the use of prescribed fire on the landscape. That's the primary objective. That's what councils are formed for, and that's what they strive for. So I've included a few examples of mission statements of prescribed fire councils from across the country. What I've done is highlighted a few terms here that seem to make their way from council to council and are really common amongst prescribed fire council mission statements. And again, you know, the language is changing between each of these statements, but really the intent behind what they're talking about remains the same across the board, right? They want to get more prescribed fire on the landscape. They want to promote its use. They want to educate people about it. All right, so why might we need or want one? I've already mentioned, you know, Chris and Sam touched on challenges to implementing prescribed fire here locally in the state of Maryland and in Delaware. A lot of those challenges are faced all across the country. And we're looking at a graph here, a survey of fire practitioners in the Northeast listing the primary limitations to putting prescribed fire on the ground in their areas. These are all really common, and the fire practitioners in the room are going to see some really familiar words on this screen here, stuff that's already been talked about today. So a big one, weather. You know, our weather here, we get really nice burn windows in a particular time of the year, and other times of year we're not available to be burning. Capacity, we're all trying to do as much as we can with the folks that we have, but you know, we hit a ceiling where we can't be in 10 places at one time. You know, issues like air quality, smoke management, liability and insurance, which is really, really big. Public perception, like I've already mentioned, having resources. So who's going to fund all this work and all the resources we need on the ground to get this prescribed fire work done? Some more legal stuff, low agency or landowner priority. Not everyone's interested in doing prescribed fire. And of course, the ever-growing wildland-urban interface, which is more people are moving into our rural spaces, and it's making it a little bit more of a challenge to burn. All right, so what do they do? Well, the simplest answer is they provide strategies to address all the challenges that I just mentioned. So these councils are coming together, they're providing solutions to the problems that they have in their area, and they're trying to execute on those solutions and trying to, again, get more fire on the landscape. So some of those common strategies include public and partner education and understanding. So similar to what we're doing today, we want to educate folks on why prescribed fire is important. Training and expertise. We need more firefighters on the fire line who are qualified and understand how to get the work done. Information sharing, really big. Again, you coming together, sharing the knowledge that we all have to make us all better. Cooperative burning. So Chris mentioned that, you know, we work together with the state of Maryland, for instance, and burn all together to help each other meet our own objectives on our each individual lands. Sharing resources, again, it takes a lot of resources to do this work. So if we could work cooperatively and come together and share what we have, we can do more. Prescribed fire councils are highly effective at addressing policy and regulations in states, and in most cases, changing those for the better. So in some states are more conducive than others to doing prescribed fire work, and one big role prescribed fire councils can play is advocating for better policies to help us get more fire on the landscape safely. And again, communicating all this work that we're doing and why prescribed fire is important. All right, so who participates? Just a short list of common participants in councils, state agencies, NGOs, non-government organizations like the Nature Conservancy, natural resource management contractors, academic institutions, private landowners. In some cases, federal agencies get involved as well. But diverse stakeholders with diverse perspectives and diverse objectives make for a really well-rounded council and makes for creating solutions to all these complex problems a lot easier. So meeting the challenges that we've talked about is increasing fire use on the landscape is going to mean that we need to work together. So cooperation, collaboration, and coordination are really the foundation that these councils are built on. All right, so one of the most important things prescribed fire councils can do is share information, share resources, get the word out there, steer people towards information that they can use to go out and talk about prescribed fire and why it's good. So I've listed here a couple resources that you can go to learn more about prescribed fire councils in general, and then several resources that are more on the fire science aspect of things. All of these are really, really great sites, and I would encourage everyone to take some time, look through the information that they have. And Sam Topper in our last presentation beat me to the punch here, but I pointed out on the map a minute ago that hole in the blue area there over Delmarva, over Maryland and Delaware. Well, I'm here to officially announce that not only is Delaware starting a prescribed fire council, but we're also starting one in Maryland as well. So there's going to be a lot more information to come. And yeah, we're really excited about it. Both states have been considering this for quite a while, and we're putting our boots to the ground, and we're making it happen. So here on Delmarva, as we all know, there's challenges to getting more fire on the landscape, and we're going to be coming together as a group. Many of us in this room, I hope, are participating in these efforts, and we're going to come together and we're going to come up with some solutions, and we're going to start doing more prescribed fire on Delmarva. All right, so stay tuned for more information there. One slide back. Yep, if folks want to snap a picture of this. I believe slides are going to go out to everyone eventually. So I'm trying to make up for some time here so I could field your question. I'll field one more question here, and then we'll move on to our last topic for the afternoon.
So in Maryland, would it be done by counties or zone, like Eastern Shore, Northern, Western Maryland, or how would it be by
yeah, that's a good question. So the question is, you know, are we going to form this council regionally, so county to county, or maybe east and west? We're going to be taking a whole state approach. So this is the same case for Delaware as well, but in Maryland, we're looking at the entire state. So you know, we're going to have folks involved from the Eastern Shore, from Southern Maryland, from Western Maryland. So it'll be everyone all together. And one more from Tom.
Talk about resources. Of course, we all know this all boils down to money and manpower. There is a climate-ready workforce initiative getting ready to go on, and I think something like this should be a part of that conversation because it does have to do with forest management and forest health. Of course, we all know how important this is. I think that we also need to look at getting into our boards of education with career and technology centers. Could we develop something that could be a forestry related course that entails, you know, the prescribed fire aspect of it that would entice these kids to want to come and be on a private fire crew that does this, or even the state forest services?
Yep. So I'm going to distill the question real quick for our folks on Zoom here, but it's about education and educating young folks about prescribed fire and kind of the work that we do, making sure they're aware it's an opportunity for them into the future. And that is squarely within the realm of what prescribed fire councils do. And that's certainly something that I know the Maryland Council and the Delaware Council will have on their agendas to figure out how we can get more of an educational component out there for folks to enjoy. So